Hi, this is Chris Nielsen with Breaking Up with Fear. I'm blessed today to have Krista Giannak with me, and she's going to share a couple of her Breaking Up with Fear stories. Krista, please tell the audience of Breaking Up with Fear a little bit about yourself, and then let's jump into a story.
Sure. So I've been blind since birth, and so I like to share my stories of facing fears and overcoming challenges to become who I am today. So today I'm a writer, PR professional, story consultant, and a skier who just happens to be blind. So my stories, and for the longest time I hesitated to share my more personal stories, and yet, what I discovered was that people were inspired and they wanted to hide from their stories less or uncover more of their key moments in their lives because they heard my story.
I love that, Krista, and I love what you shared. And for people that didn't hear, when I first met Krista, I thought, no way is she blind because she has such presence and she's here networking with all of us. But to be a blind skier, to all the things you've accomplished, and as a writer, what is the story that is most compelling for you to share with us right now?
So, a lot of people ask me about my skiing experience because they're like, how the heck did you learn to ski? How does a blind person ski? And it's an amazing, freeing experience. And it's very sensual, I guess is a good way of putting it, in the sense that I feel the fall line under my feet. I hear the rustle of the snow and other people around me skiing. I smell the clean air and I can sort of taste the excitement and the freedom of being able to fly almost on the slopes there. So the thing
That
is,
that is incredible exciting. I just wanted to say because I
oh,
grew up
thanks.
with a ski hill near my house in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and we would go skiing. And I was scary to me seeing going down the hill, seeing going down any of the steep hills. I can't imagine what it'd be like. Not well, I can imagine, but not very well. Actually, not watching. But I love how you described it as sensual.
The thing is that it doesn't start out as the description that I just gave you.
Hmm.
It
I bet.
actually starts with a number of smaller and much less exciting steps.
Well, tell us about those.
That's the key, really, with facing fear, at least for me. Whenever I'm afraid of something, I'm not one of those go with your gut, jump in kinds of people. I tend to ask a lot of questions, do my homework. What I discover is the more questions that I ask and the more that I know about something, the less scary it becomes. Because I've just made I've made the unknown known in a way.
I love that. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's powerful for a lot of people to just feel the power to ask the questions.
Yeah,
So
and
what were the
sometimes
big
it's
question you asked to that you needed to know before you let go and skied down a hill?
I needed to know that there's a method to the madness. I needed to know that these instructors, well, first of all, I wasn't even sure that there were instructors. I didn't know how all of this worked. I mean, I knew there must be, but I didn't know that they were trained in helping people with visual impairments. I didn't know that there were different visual classifications and that they affected the ski instruction. I didn't know that it wasn't just the instructor and the skier out there. It's also a ski guide. I didn't know how the directions worked. I didn't know that they could call out left, right, straight, and they could sort of modify it to tell you how hard they wanted the turn or how wide or narrow and things like that. All these things I didn't know. And because I didn't know all these things, I was just like, wow, no, this is impossible. Or this is certainly impossible for me. I'm not going to be able to do this. And even before I left to go to Vermont that first year, I didn't believe that I was going to be able to do it. And yet at the same time, I knew that if I didn't make the attempt to check it out and see what it was all about, that I would regret it. I had an opportunity to go up with some people I knew, which was even more fun.
Hmm.
And they told me, the people who ran this program in Vermont, Vermont Adaptive Ski and Sports, and the United States Association of Blind Athletes, they told me, why don't you come up, since you're so excited about it and afraid, why don't you come up and check it out? You can put the skis on, you can go on flat ground for a while, you can just enjoy the snow with us, and you can decide if you like it or not. You don't have to like it. You don't
I
have to want to
love
go forward.
I love their approach. And here's, you got me a curious question now that just popping in my head. How did this get into your head that you thought, oh my gosh, maybe I want to ski? How did that even happen?
I heard about it from skiers. I heard about how excited they were and what a freeing sensation it is. I've also always liked rides because they are a new experience, a new sensation that you can't have just sitting here on the ground at your desk.
Yeah, I can see that. For me, skiing for me was so exciting. So now you're up, you're heading towards Vermont. You've asked these questions, and I love how they explain you can start on flat ground. So they're taking some of the fear out of it for you. And tell us more
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, they're taking steps. So everything in facing a fear is taking a small step. Now there are some big steps, of course, in facing fears. I'm not saying that there are none, but what I am saying is that most of the work in facing a fear is figuring out small steps that you can take. And even deciding sometimes you're not even sure if you want to face the fear. Not every fear is worth facing, not every challenge is worth overcoming. But in order to open your mind to the possibility of facing the fears and overcoming the challenges, at least if you're anything like me, it's helpful to take the steps.
I love it. And I love what you've shared so far. So tell us more about when you arrived. So Vermont was the first time you went skiing, or did you go skiing that first time even?
I did. I followed their process. I didn't make it up onto the actual lift, and yet I was still skiing because there is flatter ground, and you can also walk up the hill a short ways and then ski the rest of the way down.
So that's what you did the first time.
Yes, that's what I did because it was a weekend, a ski weekend. I was a complete beginner, and I'm
Yeah.
still a beginner, but I was like an extra beginner.
And so what was that first experience like? You know, I love when you describe the sensation of skiing, the sensualness of skiing. So what did it feel like? You know, the fear, the excitement, the people that you were with supporting you. What did it feel like that in that first experience?
Well, I sort of alternated between being afraid and having fun with the experiences, depending on what situation I was in. Like there were circumstances, there were moments where felt like I was going to, lose my balance and fall. And I did fall quite a few times. That's also part of skiing, as I very quickly discovered that when you fall, you also get back up and you start again.
Yes. Yes.
So, so it's not that I right away that it was like, oh, I'm all of a sudden I'm not afraid. It was more like I can do this despite the fact that I have some fear. And it's still worth doing because the beginners all walked away in one piece.
That's good. And you're here today. And so how did you feel after that first day of skiing? What did it feel like to have done that?
Well, it's an accomplishment. And I was also kind of wondering what would happen the next day.
Okay. So I'm wondering what happened the next day.
Well, I mean, it was more of it was an extension of the steps I'm talking about. I'm not really sure how to elaborate further because sometimes I find too that as much as you remember experiences, some of it is kind of a blur.
Oh, for
It
sure.
goes
Yeah.
fast and yet it goes slow. Like there's sort of a paradox where sometimes I was tired or frustrated at walking up the hill again or things like that. And that seemed to go by and it seemed to go slowly. And I was like, I want to be enjoying this. And I breathed in and smiled and made the best of the moment. And yet there were other times where it was so fun and free and floating kind of thing, flying. So it's actually, we kind of walk away with some of the peak experiences. And yet it's all the other stuff in between too that makes the experience.
I love what you shared there, and also, just the words you shared: breathed in and smiled, and I think you said let it go. It's breathe in and smiled, and let it go, or be more present. That
Yeah.
felt good, even just to hear that. And when we're in our fear, how can we breathe it in, smile, bring ourselves back to that present moment? So tell me
Yeah.
more about your skiing journey.
Well, I wasn't always a skier, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, well, I would love to hear more about, this, what you've learned from it, more of the story, what happened the next time? How would you like to share the story in a way that you think might benefit an audience hearing it?
So, what I gained from the skiing is that sometimes what seems like a weakness can also be presented as a strength. So,
Mm,
I am not a good skier by any stretch of the imagination. I could walk away and tell this story and say, I'm not a good skier. I keep taking two steps forward and one step back. I keep falling, blah, blah, blah. I could make this really unpleasant and not fun. Or I could look at how much fun I actually had when I went and how much fun
hmm
I still have when I get to go and how I like to try other types of skiing too. I tried cross country and water skiing, and I can look at how it actually opened the door to other types of experiences. And it opened the door for me to be able to share about my blindness in a positive way. So a lot of times I start conversations when it's not about fear, especially when I'm in a networking business situation. I talk about how I encourage people not to hide from their stories and to share knowledge that resonates with their audiences. And that comes from not only a place of writing and PR experience, but also a place of being there. I've been there. I didn't want to share my stories all the time either. And there are still stories that all of us, we don't necessarily want to share every story. And yet there are lots of stories that we can share that empower us and that strengthen others.
Your story definitely, I think, strengthens others, and I love hearing it. I love also the phrase of open a door. I think sometimes we think doors are all shut to us, but there's a
Yeah.
power in just your example of living in skiing, and many people with sight don't ever attempt to ski because it's so fear making to them.
Oh
So
yeah.
you talked about opening the door and also sharing the stories that we're afraid to share. I mean, I think that's a part of what you do. What were your epiphanies around that? And how do you help others do that same thing?
What I find is that when you can share your story from a place of strength, it makes it so much easier and also more impactful. So when you go through a struggle, you may not be able to share every aspect of that story with everyone while you're struggling. And yet, usually you make it to the other side of that. So when you make it to the other side, you can then come out and say, well, this is how I've gained, this is what I've learned, this is what I experienced, and be able to share from a point of strength.
And how do you help others see that place of strength? How do you get others to find that place of strength? And maybe even how did you find that place of strength?
So just as I took courses and I got to explore the turning points in my own life with mentors, I encourage others because we're all sort of, maybe not all of us, but it's easy to get a little stuck when you talk about your own stuff because it all just feels like an everyday, oh yeah, this is just my life. And so it can take some digging, some good questions, some good conversations to bring out those turning points, those moments in your life where you can look back and say, something changed in me after this moment. Or in the case of business stories, this is what led me among other moments, but this is one moment that led me to the path that I'm on now. So I
Yeah,
like to uncover those.
I love that. So you uncover those moments, those turning points. And you just triggered me this to go back for a second when you talked about mentors, and I think how important it is and to have mentors and have other people helping us. You described it in the people that helped you. So can you give us a picture of all the people that were around you that got you onto that ski slope for you to let go of some of the fears? What were the people around you and how did they help you let that go?
The other skiers who were blind were so positive.
Oh,
That's one thing that struck me the most is that they were all so happy to be there. They knew what a privilege, what an opportunity it was, and they just wanted to share the excitement and the energy with others. So that was one side of it. And also, quite a few of them weren't afraid to share their journeys. I met some veterans who had some rough times. I met some instructors who shared how they were so excited to, because I asked a couple of the instructors and guides, gosh, isn't this so boring? Guiding me on the flat ground
uh-huh.
and pushing me a little bit down the hill. And I remember the one of the guides said to me, no, it isn't, because we love to pass on something that we've gotten to enjoy all our lives with someone new and watch them. They said that the joy in your face, the
Oh, yeah.
genuine excitement makes it all worth it. I'm not talking about the little smile, to get yourself on track. I'm talking about real joy when you really enjoy something and someone is teaching you. That's a powerful moment for the teacher. And I hadn't really thought about that until they mentioned it.
I love so much of what you just shared for so many reasons. Just the story from the other blind skiers that get you excited about it, but also the ones that say, "Hey, I had to struggle with it." So you're almost primed to have there's going to be a little bit of struggle in it, and
Yeah,
then
and
to
also
have
other struggles in their lives. I was also more referring to that they were open about their journeys. So therefore, when they're talking about how exciting the skiing is, it makes it that much more genuine.
absolutely. And then I love that you had the insight and awareness to look at life from the perspective of your teacher or the instructor and to feel what they were feeling and and then to share that joy. And I've experienced it as a teacher and as a coach to share something with someone and they really get it and to see their eyes and face light up with true joy as you spoke about. Um, Thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anything else around there that you want to share? Because I've loved what you've shared so far.
I would say that I'm so grateful that I had people supporting me. I had a martial arts instructor who is also visually impaired, and he was the one who recommended this skiing program. I found him because I knew other blind people. I found other blind people because there are organizations out there to help people. And I found those organizations because I had teachers and mentors in my life. I also found that in the quote unquote ordinary business world, where the people aren't skiing blind, there are still amazing, remarkable people who every now and again are willing to offer an opportunity to people who show up, or a
Mm,
moment of mentorship, a moment of good advice and wisdom.
I love that opportunity to people that
Yeah.
show up.
That's what
And
I that's one major lesson that I learned is that sometimes just the act of showing up brings amazing things into my life.
here's what you triggered in me right now is I know people resist asking for help or asking to do different things. I know I have.
So have
What,
I.
yeah, what would you say to those people out there if someone was watching this video and they were resistant, asking for help to do something, not showing up for those opportunities? What helped you get through that, or what would you recommend to them?
It depends on where they are in their journey. in terms of how they would approach that, because I've approached it in different ways in different parts of my life journey and the types of help that I was asking for. And I would say that it's important for me to recognize that there are some circumstances where if I don't ask for that help, I already know that I'm not going to achieve whatever it is I want to achieve.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of questions that I ask myself instead of looking at my question or my need for help as a burden. I often turn it around and say, what can I do for the other person? Or how does this bring us closer together? Or how does this get me on a more even playing field so I can help people in the future?
Oh, I love those series of questions. Those are powerful questions to ask yourself. Is there any other questions you would encourage people to ask of themselves when they're considering doing something difficult or scary or something that is compelling them forward?
I like to say, if you're thinking about doing the impossible, go out there and find someone who's already done it.
Yeah.
And those are the folks that are often really excited about sharing how they've done it because they know that someone out there thinks it's impossible.
Oh,
I've been amazed at how many people are really happy to offer advice and guidance and wisdom because everyone wants to feel that their experiences matter.
you're blessing us with a lot of wisdom today. People do want to feel their experiences matter, and what I get too is those people that have achieved the so-called impossible, they do love to share it with others. It's like, yeah, it's this gift to share it with others. You feel so enlivened by it. Um, you've triggered a ton of other questions I have in me for you, but I won't go down those rabbit holes right now. If people want to reach out to you and you help people bring their stories, tap into their stories, stop hiding from their stories, how would you describe the work you do there, and how could someone find you?
I love to work with people who are bursting with knowledge and
Yeah.
who have a great story to share. And I also love to work with people who think that their stories are boring.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I come across people who say, oh, I fell into this industry, or oh, I picked it because it's the family business, or I figured I'd make some money. And those aren't really compelling stories. Yet behind them, there's always something that led the person in the direction of where they are. There are always characteristics of the person or experiences that they had, perhaps moments in their life that drove them toward a type of leadership that's unique to them, or perhaps moments that drove them to help people in whatever their unique way is to help people. Because lots of people say that they help people. I like to expand on that. Well, let's see how you help people and what does help mean to you? And can we come up with another word for help?
I
So
can see one of your gifts, one of your really powerful gifts, is that you have thought and formulated some amazing, empowering questions that get people to experience their world in very different ways.
thank you. I love to ask those deeper questions and delve into who people are, why they matter, even on a personal level. Those are the
Mm,
conversations that light me up.
yeah.
So that on a business level, we can then bring out those stories that can drive their products or services or whatever they're offering further. And
That's
that's why my
beautiful.
business is called Wise Words That Matter.
Wise
It
words that matter. I love that
Yeah,
title.
it actually came from I had a freelance name on a site. I had two of them. I had one that was Words That Matter, and I had one that I was experimenting with that was Wise Words. So that's how I ended up combining the two, and I made Wise Words That Matter. I had a tagline, and so I shortened that and just made it Wise Words That Matter.
I love that. Who are the people that typically reach out that want your help? What's your favorite type of client to work with wise words that matter?
My favorite types of clients, I love to work with thought leaders, experts, speakers, people who want to get their messages out there, especially if they want to do a blog or write ebooks or other types of longer form content because they're excited about becoming or remaining an authority in their field, in their niche.
Mm,
They want people to know, like, and trust them. I know that's kind of a cliche, know, like, and trust, and yet it really does have an important meaning. How else are people going to know you unless if they're not able to meet you? How else can they get insight into who you are, what you know, what you believe, and how you act every day, unless you have some sort of content or some sort of reputation that you can stand behind?
yeah. Well, very well said. How can people reach out and find you?
I do a weekly Facebook Live at 3 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday on Wise Words That Matter on Facebook. I'm also at wisewords.thatmatter.com, where you can get a free report on the budget eating, marketing, and PR mistakes to avoid now.
That's wonderful. So say that again. When is your Facebook Live again?
My
Wednesday,
Facebook Live is every Wednesday at 3 p.m. You can go to Wise Words That Matter on Facebook. That's my page.
3 p.m. Eastern time. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can go to Wise Words That Matter on Facebook and go to wisewords.thatmatter.com to get that free report about the budget eating, marketing, and PR mistakes you can avoid right now.
Thank you, Krista, so much for sharing the lessons and how to connect with you more. I so enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Krista. This was amazing.